Yo, what's good, family? We're locked in tonight, and the internet just went full nuclear because a Drake stan in Toronto committed the dumbest crime of the entire 2026 hip-hop calendar. Drake himself pressed the little heart button like he was signing a peace treaty with pure clown energy, and now, and I promise you cannot make this up, the same fool who filmed the whole disaster has the audacity to open a GoFundMe. A GoFundMe for a speaker that his friend destroyed, while simultaneously begging Kendrick Lamar for forgiveness on camera. Meanwhile, DJ Akademiks is on national broadcast crying that Drake is officially blackballed by the entire music industry because he was spotted sitting one row away from Sexy Red at the World Cup. And Maul from the Rory and Maul crew just had a full internal system collapse because Complex ranked Not Like Us as the number 5 greatest LA rap record of all time. Family, I have 4 stories, 1 hour of receipts, and only one Drake left standing in this whole rodeo. So buckle in tight, because tonight we're pulling every single thread until the entire OVO sweater unravels on camera. Roll the tape. Let me set the table before we even get to the clip, because context matters, and I want every single one of you to understand the exact temperature of the room. Toronto is not Alabama. Toronto is not some anti-Kendrick fortress where Compton records get confiscated at the border. Kendrick Lamar physically flew into that city, headlined a packed-out arena, performed Not Like Us not once but twice back-to-back, and the entire crowd, Torontonians, Drake's own hometown fanbase, sang every syllable back at him like it was the national anthem. So when you tell me a Drake stan in that same city, in that same year, walked up to a peaceful group of hip-hop fans playing Kendrick on a portable speaker and started screaming, "Who's Kendrick?" like he just discovered a new species, I need you to understand. This wasn't defense of the culture. This was cosplay. This was a grown man begging for a viral moment and getting handed one with interest. Peep this footage. The fan asks innocently, playfully, "Yo, who's Kendrick?" The exact energy of somebody who has been watching wrestling promos on TikTok for 6 months and finally decided today was the day he became a main event heel. His friend, standing right next to him, walks up, grabs the speaker, a piece of equipment that belongs to another human being, and yeets it across the ground like it personally insulted his mother. The Kendrick fans, who were quite literally minding their own business, respond in the only language that translates universally across every borough on planet Earth. The speaker thrower gets stomped out. Not lightly. Not for the cameras. Real, undeniable, physics-based consequences. And where is his filmer friend during all of this? Running. Not helping. Not even filming the fight anymore. Running. That's what a real one looks like, huh? Drake, I hope you got a good look at your top-tier defense force, bruh. And this is where the story turns from stupid into legendary levels of unhinged energy. Because the guy who filmed the entire incident, the guy who admitted on camera that he was the one who agitated the moment, the guy whose friend got introduced to the pavement, this genius posts a video apology, then opens a GoFundMe to pay for the speaker his boy demolished. Read that sentence again. He is asking the internet for donations to replace equipment that his own group destroyed in a fight that he agitated on camera. And in his own bio, he lists himself as a producer, which means he owns speakers already, which means the correct move, the human move, the man of honor move, would have been to walk up to that Kendrick fan, hand him one of his own, apologize, and never post another word on the internet ever again. Instead, he chose the beggar's route. Somebody pass this man a mirror and a moment of clarity, because this is not it. Drake, meanwhile, and this is where I need you to focus, Drake liked the post. The original video. The one where his fan gets stomped out for disrespecting Kendrick fans in his own city. Drake, a grown 39-year-old billionaire artist, watched his own supporter get flattened for tribal loyalty and pressed the little heart button as if to say, yeah, that's my guy. Family, that is a cosign. You cannot spin it. You cannot deflect it. In 2026, in the year of our Lord, on a platform where every action is public record, a like from Drake is a stamp of approval. And to like that specific clip, the one where the guy defending Drake's honor is being embarrassed in real time, is either the most tone-deaf social media move in modern rap history or a genuine window into how Drake actually processes loyalty. I'll let you decide which one. Drop your take below, seriously, I'm curious. Now, let's slide over to the apology clip, because this is where the layers get thicker than a Wu-Tang album. The filmer, whose government name I won't say because the internet has already done enough excavation on that front, sits down in front of a camera and delivers the most transparently PR-motivated apology I have witnessed in 6 months of covering this beat. He says, and I quote, "I apologize to Noah and his friends. I should have shown you guys a better example. I'm older than you, I know better." Bruh, if you know better, why did you agitate the moment? Why did you post the clip? Why did you start a fundraiser instead of paying the man yourself? The apology is not remorse. The apology is damage control from a person who woke up to find his DMs full of threats and his address rumored to be on 3 different Twitter accounts. Drake fans, please stop presenting this as growth. It's containment. Then, buried inside the same apology, he lets the mask slip. He says, and family, please prepare yourselves. Everything I consume is American. Everything I watch is American. But I don't want us to be no-hoes. Roll that back one more time. Everything he consumes is American. Everything he watches is American. But somehow the tribal loyalty engine in his brain fired up specifically over a Kendrick Lamar record. Kendrick Lamar, if you didn't know, is a Black American artist from Compton. So this fan is telling you on camera that he happily imports every piece of American culture into his living room, but draws the line at one specific American rapper because his favorite Canadian artist has ongoing feelings about that specific American rapper. That is not patriotism. That is not cultural pride. That is fan service extremism, and it is exactly the kind of tribalism that Drake's whole late career strategy has been quietly feeding for 2 solid years. Which brings us seamlessly to story number 2, and this one has DJ Akademiks wheezing into a microphone like he just ran a marathon in dress shoes. Akademiks is out here, on his platform, in front of his audience, telling the world that Drake is officially, capital B, blackballed by the music industry. His evidence? Drake sat in his own private box at the World Cup with Sexy Red, while A$AP Rocky, Pharrell, Future, and a handful of other artists were spotted hanging in what appears to be the standard FIFA celebrity press section. That's the evidence. That's the smoking gun. Family, if that is blackballing, then every celebrity who has ever attended a sporting event in a private suite has been blackballed at some point in their life. Let me tell you what blackballing actually looks like. Blackballing is when your music gets pulled from playlists, when your label drops your marketing spend, when radio programmers stop returning your calls, when major publications refuse to cover your releases. Drake is currently doing the opposite of every single one of those things. His songs are on rotation. His label is fully behind the Iceman rollout. Radio is spinning him daily. Rolling Stone, Billboard, Complex, XXL, every major publication is still writing him up. So no, Akademiks. Drake is not blackballed. Drake is unpopular in certain rooms because Drake spent the last 2 years subtweeting, subdissing, and side-eyeing half of those rooms. There is a very specific word for what happens when you insult a room full of people for 2 years and then walk into that same room expecting warm hugs. That word is consequences, and consequences are not the same thing as being blackballed. Drake is experiencing the natural social cost of his own behavior, and Akademiks knows this, but the narrative that Drake is a persecuted underdog fighting a shadowy industry conspiracy is far more monetizable than the truth, which is that Drake alienated himself and now has to sit alone because he chose that seat. Props to every commenter in that live chat calling this out in real time. Y'all are sharper than the entire so-called analyst class. And here's the part that really exposes the whole bit. Akademiks goes on this whole tangent about how Future was hanging with the ops and how confusing it is that Future and Drake did a collaboration, but Future is still spotted with Pharrell and Rocky. Bruh, these are grown men. They are business partners, colleagues, competitors, occasional friends, occasional not friends. That is called being an adult in a professional industry. You do not have to pick a side at the seeding chart of the World Cup. Future does not owe Drake a boycott of Pharrell. Pharrell does not owe Drake a public loyalty pledge. This childish us versus them framing that Akademiks keeps pushing is the same virus that infected the Toronto speaker fan. It's the same virus that has half of Drake's fanbase turning every public appearance into a court trial. Grow up. Music is a business. Business relationships are transactional. Anyone selling you a Disney movie version of celebrity friendship is selling you a fantasy. Story number 3, and this one I cannot lie, I've been waiting all week to unpack. Complex Magazine dropped their list of the top 100 greatest LA rap songs of all time. Number 5 on that list, number 5 out of 100, out of every West Coast anthem ever recorded, is Not Like Us by Kendrick Lamar. And Maul, from the Rory and Maul podcast, watched that reveal live on his own show and had what I can only describe as a spiritual event. His face collapsed. His voice cracked. He started listing songs he thought should be ranked higher: In the Morning by Ice-T, Gin and Juice by Snoop Dogg, Boys in the Hood by Eazy-E, as if any of us were denying those are all-time records. Nobody is denying that. The question isn't whether those songs are classics. The question is whether, in the year 2026, after Not Like Us won a Grammy, went diamond, became the most awarded rap song in the history of the awards, and continues to pull nearly 1 million streams a day 2 full years after release, does it belong in the top 5 of Los Angeles rap history? And the honest answer, whether you like Kendrick or not, is yes. Undeniably yes. Maul's problem is not the ranking. Maul's problem is Kendrick. And we know this because Maul has spent every single week for the last 2 years finding new, creative, increasingly desperate ways to downplay Kendrick's cultural footprint. If Kendrick releases an album, Maul finds a flaw. If Kendrick wins an award, Maul questions the voters. If Kendrick performs at the Super Bowl in front of 130 million viewers, Maul says the numbers are inflated. And now, when Complex, a publication Maul has cited approvingly 100 times when their lists favored his own preferences, puts a Kendrick record at number 5, suddenly Complex is trash. Suddenly the list is compromised. Suddenly LA doesn't know its own culture. Family, this is not analysis. This is grief. Maul is grieving in public, and he's dragging his audience through the funeral with him. Here's the meta-thesis, and I want every single person watching to lock this in, because it applies to every character in tonight's story. The loudest voices in a room are almost always the guiltiest. The Toronto speaker fan is loud because he knows deep down he was wrong. Akademiks is loud because he knows deep down his blackball narrative is thin. Maul is loud because he knows deep down Not Like Us belongs in that top 5. And Drake, the quietest of all 4, the one who says nothing, just presses like buttons and slides into private boxes, Drake is loud in a different way. He is loud through his surrogates. Through his fans. Through the commentators he can influence with an invite, a cosign, a chain, a photo op. Every one of these characters is playing a role in the same theater, and that theater is called We Cannot Accept That Kendrick Lamar Won the Biggest Rap Moment of the Decade, and we will spend the rest of our public lives relitigating that verdict. And the receipts keep piling up. Kai Music dropped stats this week showing Drake's odds of finishing as the #1 Spotify Artist of the Year have collapsed to 9%. 9%. This is the same Drake whose team is pushing narratives about how he's iced out the summer and running the entire industry. Numbers do not lie. Streams do not lie. Chart positions do not lie. The gap between the mythology Drake's inner circle is selling and the empirical reality of his commercial performance is now so wide you could park a container ship in it. Meanwhile, Kendrick is quietly moving. No press circus. No apology videos. No World Cup box drama. Just work. Just records. Just receipts. That is what an actual golden era looks like, a rapper who lets the music carry the volume, not the internet. Let's talk about the fan culture side of this too, because this matters. There is a specific breed of Drake supporter that treats every single conversation about hip-hop as a personal attack on their identity. If you say Kendrick is a better lyricist, attack. If you say Cole is a better technician, attack. If you say Wayne is the greatest of his generation, attack. Nothing exists outside the Drake versus the world binary in their brains. And this Toronto speaker incident is the perfect microcosm. That fan wasn't defending Drake. Drake does not need defending. He is a 9-figure global superstar with hundreds of millions of monthly listeners. That fan was defending his own emotional investment in Drake's mythology, and he was willing to physically attack a stranger's property to protect a story he had built inside his own head. That is not fandom. That is identity fusion, and it is genuinely one of the scariest developments in modern pop culture because it turns every music release into a proxy war, and every proxy war eventually spills into the street. Now, to be crystal clear, and I want the Drake stans listening to actually process this, none of what I'm saying means Drake is a bad artist. Drake has an unimpeachable catalog. Drake has records that will be played at weddings and cookouts and funerals for the next 50 years. Drake is one of the most commercially successful artists in the history of the format. That is not the debate. The debate is whether the man's behavior in the last 24 months, the shots, the subtweets, the private boxes, the like buttons on stomp-out clips, the strategic collaborations engineered for numerical damage control, whether all of that is the behavior of a confident champion or the behavior of a person who lost one round and cannot stop reliving it. And every piece of evidence, from the Toronto sidewalk to the World Cup luxury suite, points in exactly one direction. Confidence does not need a fan base of enforcers. Confidence does not need a GoFundMe. Confidence does not need Akademiks running defense on a live stream. Wayne, of all people, was asked this week for his top 5 living rappers. And Wayne, being Wayne, said Jay-Z, Missy Elliott, and rattled off his classic answers. He did not name Drake. And immediately, a certain faction of the internet declared Wayne a traitor. Wayne, the man who signed Drake to Young Money. The man whose entire label built the platform Drake stood on. Wayne is now a traitor because he did not include his own artist in a personal preference list. Family, do you hear yourselves? Do you hear how deep the delusion goes? Wayne has been giving the same answer to that question for 15 years. Nothing changed except the emotional temperature of Drake's fanbase, and now they are turning on their own founding father because of it. If that is not the definition of a cult, I do not know what is. And Missy Elliott, by the way, is one of the most decorated songwriters and performers in the history of the genre. That pick is not disrespect. That pick is respect for craft. Anyone dragging Wayne for it has not actually listened to a Missy album in 15 years. Let's close some loops before we wrap. The Toronto speaker fan, his GoFundMe should be shut down by moral force, and I strongly encourage every viewer here not to donate a single dollar. If he wants to make it right, he can hand Noah one of his own speakers and walk away in silence. That is the honorable exit. DJ Akademiks, if you want to keep pushing the blackball narrative, at least bring real receipts. Radio drops. Label statements. Playlist removals. Bring something empirical or retire the bit. Maul, you have every right to your personal list. Complex has every right to theirs. And if you want to keep pretending Not Like Us doesn't belong in that top 5, that is your prerogative, but please stop pretending it's an objective take. It is a grudge dressed in a suit. And Drake, my brother, my guy, my 9-figure North Star, press fewer buttons. Sit in fewer private boxes. Make more records. Let the music do the loud talking. Because right now the loudest thing in your career is the silence between you and the rest of the industry, and silence, my friend, is the one weapon you cannot subtweet your way out of. And one more thing, because I want to make sure this lands. Every generation of hip-hop has a moment where the culture picks a direction and never looks back. When Nas dropped Ether, the culture picked a direction. When Jay-Z released The Blueprint, the culture picked a direction. When Kendrick performed at the Super Bowl with 130 million people watching him spell out "Not Like Us" letter by letter across a stage designed like an American flag, the culture picked a direction. And Drake is currently trying to convince us that direction was wrong, that the crowd was fooled, that the algorithm was rigged, that the industry conspired. But hip-hop does not work that way. Hip-hop is the most democratic genre on the planet. Records live or die by the streets, by the barbershops, by the block parties, by the cars driving down every American highway with the bass turned up. And Not Like Us won every single one of those rooms. You cannot rig a barbershop. You cannot lobby a cookout. You cannot buy your way onto every stadium jumbotron in the country. The record earned its place, and no